beloved chosen one. You were never meant to give up. And you need to hear that with your whole heart right now, because the pressure has been speaking loudly. The pain has been speaking constantly, and the exhaustion has been trying to convince you that the story is over when heaven is saying something completely different. You are not at the end. You are not abandoned. You are not forgotten in some hidden corner of life where prayers go unanswered and purpose goes to die. You are standing in a moment that feels heavier than you expected, darker than you prepared for, and longer than you thought you could endure. Yet even here, God is not finished with you. That truth does not change just because your emotions are tired. It does not disappear because people misunderstood you. It does not weaken because the road became lonely. The calling on your life did not vanish in the storm. The hand of God did not slip off you in the night. The purpose written over your name did not expire because you had moments where your strength ran low and your tears fell in silence. You have been carrying things that few people could see. You have smiled when your heart was trembling. You have kept moving when your soul felt bruised. You have prayed with shaking faith, obeyed with unanswered questions, and stood when it would have been easier to collapse. That matters more than you know. Every time you thought you had nothing left, and still took one more step, something holy was being formed in you. Every time you refused to let bitterness become your identity, even while pain tried to rewrite your name, heaven took note. Every time you chose not to surrender completely, even when you came close, that choice testified that something deeper than despair was still alive inside you. There is a reason you have not broken all the way. There is a reason you are still here listening, still searching, still hoping under the weight of things that should have buried you by now. This is not coincidence. This is divine mercy reaching for you again. You may have thought that because the battle lasted so long, it meant you were losing. But length is not proof of defeat. Delay is not proof of denial. Resistance is not proof that God stepped away. Sometimes the fiercest battles gather around the lives that carry the greatest weight of purpose, because darkness reacts to what it cannot control. The very fact that you have been hit from so many sides is not always evidence that you are weak. Sometimes it is evidence that what lives in you is dangerous to the things that wanted to keep you small, silent, and spiritually asleep. You were never made to blend in with fear. You were never designed to settle into numbness. You were never created to spend your life surviving beneath the level of your calling. There is something in you that remembers you were made for more. And that holy unrest inside your spirit is not a flaw. It is a signal. You feel the tension because your life is not ordinary. Your sensitivity is not ordinary. The things you have survived are not ordinary. The hunger you carry for something real, something eternal, something untouched by the false promises of the world, that is not ordinary either. You have tried to explain yourself to people who only understood smaller versions of life. And when they could not read what God was writing in you, they labeled you difficult, intense, different, too much, or not enough. But being misunderstood by people does not mean you are misunderstood by God. He knows exactly why you feel what you feel. He knows why certain places drained you, why certain seasons almost crushed you, and why certain losses marked you so deeply. None of it escaped his sight. None of it fell outside his reach. Even now, what looks unfinished to you is still under his hand. There are moments when giving up does not look dramatic. It looks quiet. It looks like withdrawing your expectation. It looks like shrinking your prayers, lowering your standards, muting your faith, and deciding not to hope too much because disappointment has been expensive. That is how surrender often enters. Not with one loud decision, but with a slow agreement that nothing will ever really change. And that is why this message is meeting you here. Because God is interrupting that lie before it settles into your bones. You were never meant to live as a prisoner of your worst season. You were never meant to build your identity around what hurt you. You were never meant to call the ashes your final address. What happened to you is real, but it is not your master. What wounded you is painful, but it does not own your future. What delayed you is frustrating, but it does not have final authority over your destiny. Take a breath and let this settle in your spirit. The same God who kept you through what should have destroyed you has not suddenly lost the power to complete what he began. He does not start stories with intention and then abandon them halfway through. He does not place purpose in a vessel and then forget where he put it. He does not carry you through one wilderness only to leave you in the next. Even in seasons where you felt nothing but silence, he was preserving something in you. Even when doors closed, even when support disappeared, even when you questioned your own strength, he was still guarding the seed. And if the seed is still alive, then the future is still alive too. So do not measure your worth by what has not happened yet. Do not measure God's faithfulness by how confusing the middle feels. Do not measure your destiny by your current exhaustion. This chapter is intense, but it is still a chapter. It is not the whole book. You are still becoming. You are still being refined. You are still being prepared in ways you cannot fully see. There is oil being formed in the crushing, wisdom being formed in the waiting, and authority being formed in the battles you thought were only there to break you. One day you will look back and realize that what felt like the end was actually the place where your deeper strength began to rise. And before this section closes, make one act of agreement with what heaven is saying over your life. Type 777 as a sign that you refuse to come into agreement with despair. Because God is not finished with you, and what he placed in you will live beyond this moment, beyond this weariness, beyond this night. You are still chosen. You are still covered. You are still called. And even now, with all the pressure around you, the truth remains unshaken. God is still writing, still shaping, still leading, still restoring, and still moving. Your story is not over. Your purpose is not canceled. Your future is not closed. You were never meant to give up, because God is not finished with you. You are beginning to see that the breaking was never the end of your story. Because what God places on a life often gets tested long before it gets revealed in full. The pain did not come first and purpose arrived later. Purpose was already there. The hand of God was already there. The mark was already there, long before the pressure grew heavy, long before disappointment tried to settle over your heart, and long before the lonely places made you question everything. Heaven had already spoken over you. That is why this season has felt so intense. The struggle is not proof that you were forgotten. It is often the evidence that something sacred was placed inside you before the battle ever began. This is why the life of David speaks so clearly into what you are carrying right now. David was chosen before he was celebrated. He was anointed before he was announced. He was marked in private before he was trusted in public. When the prophet came to his father's house, David was not standing in the center of attention. He was not surrounded by applause. He was not even in the room at first. He was out in the field, unseen by men, but never unseen by God. That matters deeply for you. Because one of the hardest parts of your journey has been the feeling that your life has been happening in hidden places, where your faithfulness goes unnoticed and your tears seem to fall without witnesses. But the hidden place is not where your purpose dies. Often it is where your purpose is first named. David was chosen while still living a life that looked ordinary from the outside. He was tending sheep. He was learning obedience in silence. He was protecting what belonged to his father. He was developing courage where no crowd could clap for him. And that reveals something important about your own story. Just because your life does not yet look like the promise does not mean the promise is absent. Just because people do not recognize what God is doing in you does not mean heaven has changed its mind. David was already anointed, and yet he still returned to the field. He already carried the oil, but he still had to walk through process. That is where many chosen people grow weary. They think that once God speaks, the path should become immediate and easy. But often the word comes first, and then comes the forming. You know that tension. You have felt what it is like to carry something in your spirit that does not match your current surroundings. You know the ache of having a sense that your life means more than what people can see, while still waking up inside circumstances that seem too small, too hard, or too delayed. David knew that feeling too. The anointing did not remove him from struggle. In some ways, it drew struggle toward him. After the oil came the battlefields. After the victory came jealousy. After the songs of celebration came the hatred of a threatened king. That is why you must stop interpreting resistance as a sign that God has left you. Sometimes resistance rises because what is on your life is real. There is a verse that speaks directly into this truth. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 7. That verse is not just about how David was selected. It is also about how your life must be understood. People may judge your season by what is visible. They may look at your delays, your scars, your limited resources, your quiet life, your unanswered questions, and assume nothing significant is happening. But God reads deeper than appearances. He sees what He planted in you. He sees the endurance growing in you. He sees the hidden faith that kept breathing even when everything in your life felt tired. He sees the loyalty you have shown in seasons where nobody rewarded you for it. He sees the worship you offered when your heart was heavy. He sees the courage you kept using in private. And because He sees the heart, He has never misread your story. The breaking, then, is not the cancellation of your calling. It is part of the place where calling becomes deep enough to carry. David did not move from anointing to throne in one smooth line. He moved through conflict, misunderstanding, danger, and long waiting. He faced lions before crowds knew his name. He faced Goliath before he wore a crown. He faced pursuit before he ever sat in rest. The road was full of places where he could have concluded that the oil meant nothing, because the pressure felt so great. But the pressure did not erase the oil. It tested whether he would keep trusting the God who chose him. That is where this message meets you today. You have been tempted to believe that because the process has been painful, something must have gone wrong. You have wondered whether the long wait means you misunderstood what God said about your life. You have felt the exhaustion of carrying hope through seasons that look nothing like fulfillment. But David's journey teaches you that being chosen does not exempt you from wilderness. Being marked does not remove all battles. Being anointed does not mean the story unfolds quickly. It means that even in the waiting, even in the caves, even in the tears, your life remains under divine intention, and that should change how you read your own pain. The hidden years are not wasted years. The quiet seasons are not empty seasons. The places where you felt forgotten may actually be the places where your roots were growing strongest. David learned dependence in the field. He learned courage before the lion and the bear. He learned trust while nobody was watching. He learned how to stay near to God before power ever reached his hands. In the same way, what has felt like delay in your life may actually be training. What has felt like obscurity may actually be protection. What has felt like breaking may actually be preparation for a weight you could not have carried earlier. So the truth becomes clearer now. The breaking was not your end. It was not proof that you missed your moment. It was not evidence that God changed his mind about you. The choosing came first. The hand of God came first. The purpose came first. And because that is true, this difficult chapter cannot be the final word. Just as David was still chosen in the field, still chosen in the battle, still chosen in the cave, and still chosen in the long stretch of waiting, you are still chosen now. God has not withdrawn his hand from your life. He is still shaping strength in hidden places, still building your inner life, and still preparing you for what he spoke before the pain ever began. You are now stepping into the part of the journey that feels the most dangerous. Not always because it is the darkest on the outside, but because it is the place where surrender begins whispering on the inside. This is the place where giving up feels close, not because you do not love God, not because you have no faith, not because you were never chosen. It feels close because you are tired, and prolonged weariness can make even strong souls feel unsteady. There is a kind of exhaustion that does not come from one bad day, but from carrying confusion too long, fighting too many private battles, surviving too many disappointments without enough time to recover. When that kind of fatigue settles over a person, it can start changing how everything looks. What once felt possible begins to feel distant. What once felt clear begins to feel blurred. What once stirred your spirit begins to feel harder to reach. This is where many chosen people become vulnerable. Not at the beginning of the battle, but in the middle of it, when the road keeps stretching and the finish line seems hidden. That is why David's story matters so much here. David did not only face one dramatic challenge and then step immediately into peace. After he defeated Goliath, after people began to notice that the hand of God was on him, after victory proved that he carried unusual courage, his life did not suddenly become easy. In fact, the tension increased. Saul began to fear him. Jealousy rose, suspicion deepened. The one who should have recognized the grace on David's life instead treated him like a threat. And David had to live through that painful contradiction. He had already been anointed, yet he was still hunted. He had already seen God's power move through him, yet he still had to run for his life. He had already tasted public victory, yet he was forced into hidden caves. Can you hear how close that comes to your own struggle? You have had moments where God showed you enough to know he is real, enough to know your life carries purpose, enough to know you are not ordinary. But then the next season came, and instead of open doors and rest, you found pressure, misunderstanding, opposition, and delay. That is the kind of season that makes giving up feel dangerously reasonable. Not because your calling has disappeared, but because the gap between what God promised and what you are living can feel painfully wide. David knew what it was to sit in that gap. He knew what it was to wonder how a life marked by oil could still be marked by danger. He knew what it was to carry a promise while sleeping in places that did not look like promise at all. He knew what it was to keep moving while the future remained unresolved. And perhaps most of all, he knew what it was to keep his heart from hardening while living under sustained pressure. That may be one of the deepest battles you're facing right now. Not simply staying alive, not simply enduring another day, but keeping your heart tender while everything around you tries to turn you cold, cynical, defensive, and numb. This is why giving up often comes quietly. It does not always appear as a dramatic decision to walk away from everything. Sometimes it appears as emotional retreat. It appears as choosing not to expect much anymore. It appears as praying without openness, obeying without joy, surviving without vision, and telling yourself that disappointment is easier to manage than hope. But once a person begins making peace with inner surrender, they can slowly start living beneath the level of life God intended for them. David could have done that in the cave. He could have let bitterness shape his spirit. He could have turned his pain into revenge. He could have accepted the wilderness as his final identity. But somewhere in the darkness, he kept bringing his heart back before God. He kept refusing to let the cave rename him. That is the battle for you as well. The pressure is not only trying to slow your progress, it is trying to redefine your identity. It wants you to believe that this tired version of you is the truest version of you. It wants you to think your discouragement is wisdom, your numbness is maturity, and your reduced expectation is realism. But that is not truth. You are in a strained season. Yes, but a strained season is not your permanent self. You are weary, but weariness is not your name. You are under pressure, but pressure is not your destiny. The story is still moving, even if it feels painfully slow. There is something holy about recognizing this before the surrender settles too deeply. The fact that giving up feels close does not mean you are faithless. It means you need replenishing. It means your soul needs truth again. It means your inner life needs the steady reminder that what God started, He still intends to complete. David had to learn that in caves, in hiding, in uncertainty, and in long stretches where nothing seemed resolved. And you are learning it now. The battle intensifies when breakthrough draws near, because the enemy would rather exhaust you into quitting than confront the full version of who you are becoming. So hold this close. The nearness of surrender is not the same thing as the necessity of surrender. Feeling like quitting is not the same thing as being meant to quit. The ache is real, but it is not final. The pressure is real, but it is not sovereign. The cave may be real, but it is not your crown and it is not your conclusion. And if this message is strengthening you, take a gentle moment to like, share, and subscribe so it can reach someone else standing in their own cave tonight. And if you feel led to support this work, there is also a way to donate in the description. Not because this is about pressure, but because sometimes your quiet act of support helps carry hope farther than you can see. You are still here. That matters. You are still listening. That matters. You are still fighting not to agree with despair. That matters more than you know. David survived the cave, and not by pretending it was easy, but by refusing to let it become the final word over his life. You can do the same. This season may explain your weariness, but it does not define your ending. Giving up feels close because the battle is intense, but your God is closer still, and He is not finished with you. This is the moment where the warning becomes unmistakable, because what has been circling your mind as a quiet temptation now has to be confronted in the light. Do not do it. Do not let this season talk you into abandoning what God is still breathing on. Do not make a permanent decision from temporary exhaustion. Do not let pain become a prophet in your life. Do not let one hard chapter convince you that the author has stopped writing. This is not coincidence. This is divine intervention. You are hearing this now because God is interrupting the agreement that despair has been trying to form with your thoughts. He is stepping into the place where your strength has been thinning, where your emotions have been wavering, where your vision has been clouded, and He is saying that this is not the end of the matter. There are times when a person does not realize how close they are to surrender until truth suddenly exposes the edge they have been standing on. From the outside, you may still appear steady. You may still be functioning, still speaking normally. still carrying on with responsibilities, and still doing what needs to be done. But inwardly, there has been a dangerous conversation taking place. It is the conversation that asks whether anything will ever change. It is the conversation that wonders whether hope has become too expensive. It is the conversation that starts imagining a smaller life, a safer life, a quieter life where you no longer expect anything remarkable from God because expectation has been painful to carry. That is how surrender often approaches. It rarely arrives with horns and thunder. It comes as permission to stop believing deeply. David stood in places where that temptation could have swallowed him. He knew what it meant to be pursued when he had done no wrong. He knew what it meant to live under the shadow of a king's hatred while still carrying a king's anointing. He knew the fatigue of hiding, the uncertainty of waiting, and the strain of having no simple answer for why the path was so harsh. There were caves, lonely places, wilderness stretches, and days when his life must have looked nothing like the promise first spoken over him. Yet those very places became the ground where his deepest choices were tested. Not simply whether he would survive, but whether he would remain aligned with God while surviving. One of the clearest moments came when David had the opportunity to end his suffering by taking matters into his own hands. Saul, the man hunting him, was suddenly within reach. The pressure of the season could have justified retaliation. The years of fear could have justified revenge. The pain could have argued that this was finally the moment to force the promise into being. But David refused. He would not seize by flesh what had to be given by God. He would not become the wrong man on the way to becoming the right king. That is a word for you right now. Because when people are tired enough, they often become vulnerable not only to quitting, but also to shortcuts. Weariness can make compromise look practical. Long delay can make disobedience look efficient. Emotional pain can make rash action feel necessary. But divine intervention sometimes sounds like restraint. It sounds like heaven saying, "Not that way." It sounds like God protecting your future from a decision your present pain is trying to justify. This is why the warning matters so much. Do not give away tomorrow because today feels unbearable. Do not silence your own spirit by agreeing with the darkest voice in the room. Do not let the cave train you to think like a captive when God still calls you chosen. The enemy does not always need to destroy a person openly. Sometimes all he wants is to make them step out of alignment, to make them speak from bitterness, act from panic, or settle into unbelief. But God is intercepting that pattern in you. He is putting his hand into this moment and saying that you do not have to become what this season has tried to make you. There is a verse that steadies this truth with great force. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. Psalm 27, verse 14. That is not passive language. It is not a command to do nothing. It is a command to remain inwardly anchored while time stretches and answers delay. It is a command to take heart, which means courage is not always automatic. Sometimes it must be chosen. Sometimes it must be gathered again in the presence of God. David knew this not as theory, but as survival. Waiting for the Lord was not comfortable for him. It was costly. It meant refusing bitterness, refusing self-promotion, refusing revenge, refusing despair, and refusing to interpret delay as abandonment. That same choice now stands before you. Perhaps you have been closer than anyone knows to making peace with a lesser version of your life. Perhaps you have been quietly stepping back from things that once mattered deeply to you. Perhaps your prayers have grown thin. Your expectancy has grown dim, and your inner language has become heavy with defeat. Yet the fact that truth is meeting you here means the door is not closed. Conviction is a gift. Interruption is mercy. This stirring in your heart is not meant to shame you. It is meant to wake you. God is not exposing your weariness to condemn you. He is exposing it so He can call you back from the edge before surrender settles into permanence. And notice this carefully. Divine intervention does not always remove the wilderness at once. Sometimes it first restores your sight inside the wilderness. It reminds you who you are before your circumstances change. It strengthens your inward posture before it changes your outward conditions. David was still in difficult terrain even after receiving fresh reminders from God. But those reminders kept his soul from collapsing under the terrain. In the same way, this moment may not erase every struggle around you immediately, but it can break the false agreement that has been forming within you. It can put strength back into your spirit. It can restore holy resistance. It can remind you that delay is not desertion and pressure is not proof of divine absence. So hear the warning and hear the mercy inside it. Do not do it. Do not walk away in your heart. Do not bury your expectation. Do not call the cave your permanent home. Do not force what God has not released, and do not abandon what He has not canceled. This is divine intervention, not because your struggle was imaginary, but because your struggle became dangerous enough that heaven stepped into it with a clear word. Hold your ground. Guard your heart. Return your thoughts to truth. The God who sustained David in the wilderness is sustaining you now. And the very fact that this message has reached you is proof that your story is still being protected by hands far greater than your fear. At the beginning of this section, there is one practical resource worth mentioning for those moments when your mind feels foggy, your focus feels scattered, and your inner world feels worn down by constant pressure. The Genius Wave, also called Genius Song in some versions, is presented as a short audio based on brainwave entrainment, using sound patterns that are said to support focus, clarity, creativity, calm, and mental reset in just a few minutes a day. For someone who has been feeling mentally drained, overstimulated, anxious, or unable to think clearly under stress, that kind of tool may feel relevant because it is designed to address problems like brain fog, low concentration, racing thoughts, creative blockage, and emotional overload. If you want to explore it, the official information can be found in the description or pinned comment, and you should be careful with imitations or fake versions and use only the official source if you decide to try it. Now come back to the deeper truth, because even when the mind is tired and the soul is under siege, the real battle around you is not only about fatigue, it is about identity, it is about purpose. It is about the weight of what you carry and why the pressure around you has felt so unusually intense. You have probably wondered at times why your journey has been marked by so much resistance, why certain seasons seem to fight you from every direction, why peace felt interrupted just when you were trying to move forward, and why the battle did not ease even after you prayed, obeyed, and tried to remain faithful. The answer is not always that you did something wrong. Sometimes the intensity is revealing something that fear would rather keep hidden from you. The enemy fears what you carry. This is where David's story speaks with unmistakable force. David was never merely a shepherd boy with good aim and private courage. He carried something that threatened dark systems long before those systems fully recognized him. When he stepped onto the battlefield and saw Goliath, he was not just seeing a giant. He was seeing a voice of intimidation that had trained an entire nation to shrink back. Everyone else had begun accepting fear as normal. Everyone else had begun adjusting themselves around the giant's presence. Everyone else had been living under a pattern of mockery and paralysis. But David carried a different spirit. He was not impressed by what terror had made common. He saw what others had learned to tolerate, and something in him rose against it. That is one reason your life has felt difficult to explain. You disturb things without trying to. Your presence exposes what others have learned to live with. Your hunger for truth makes falsehood uncomfortable. Your refusal to fully bow to despair irritates forces that wanted you silent. There is something in you that keeps pushing against the darkness, even in exhausted seasons, even in tearful seasons, even in days when you do not feel strong. And because of that, opposition has not always been casual around you. It has often been strategic. It has often been personal. It has often been persistent. Not because you are abandoned, but because what you carry threatens what fear built. David did not become dangerous when he wore a crown. He was dangerous when he still looked ordinary. He was dangerous when he walked onto the field without the armor others depended on. He was dangerous because he knew the living God was greater than the thing everyone else had magnified. That is what the enemy fears in you. Not just your talent, not just your personality, not just your resilience. What darkness fears is the possibility that you will fully awaken to who you are in God. It fears the moment you stop measuring yourself by your wounds and start measuring your future by God's faithfulness. It fears the moment you stop calling yourself delayed and begin recognizing yourself as prepared. It fears the moment you stop negotiating with intimidation and begin standing in holy authority. That is why the warfare has often targeted your mind first. If the enemy can make you doubt your clarity, question your value, mistrust your voice, and shrink your expectation, then he does not need to physically remove you. He only needs to convince you to live beneath your spiritual stature. He only needs to keep you mentally entangled long enough that you begin seeing yourself as small. But your life was never meant to be organized around intimidation. You were not called to spend your days reacting to fear. You were called to confront what has been confronting you. David understood that what looked enormous to others looked different when measured against God. He did not deny the giant's size. He denied the giant's authority. That is where your breakthrough begins too. Not by pretending the battle is easy. Not by acting as though the pressure does not exist, but by refusing to grant ultimate authority to the thing that has been looming over your life. Fear may be loud, but it is not Lord. Delay may be long, but it is not King. Weariness may be real, but it is not your ruler. The threats around you do not get the final word over the calling within you. And notice something else about David. The giant fell in public, but the courage was formed in private. That means what you have been building in hidden places is not empty. Every prayer whispered in weakness, every private act of obedience, every moment you chose not to collapse into bitterness, every time you pulled your thoughts back from darkness and turned again toward God, all of that has been strengthening you. It may not have looked dramatic. It may not have impressed people. It may not have changed the scenery overnight, but it has been building a life that can stand when the battlefield opens. So if the resistance has been fierce, do not let that become the reason you retreat. Let it become one more sign that what rests on your life is not ordinary. Let it remind you that the enemy does not waste that much effort on empty vessels. Let it teach you that your sensitivity, your discernment, your hunger for God, and your refusal to fully surrender to numbness all point to something sacred still burning inside you. The battle has been loud because your purpose carries sound. The pressure has been heavy because your life carries weight. The intimidation has been relentless because your destiny carries consequence. You are not being fought because you are forgotten. You are being fought because what you carry matters. David faced the giant not as a victim of circumstance, but as a vessel of divine courage. And that same pattern is moving through your life now. The enemy fears what you carry because it cannot control what God has marked. It cannot bury what heaven keeps breathing on. It cannot permanently silence a life chosen to confront darkness with light. So stand firm. The pressure around you is not the proof of your weakness. It may be the evidence of the strength, authority, and purpose that have been growing in you all along. By now, you are beginning to recognize that heaven has not been silent about you, even in the seasons that felt quiet enough to break your heart. Silence is one of the hardest tests for a chosen person, because when you are already carrying pain, delay, and opposition, the absence of visible answers can feel like abandonment. You pray and hear no immediate reply. You wait and see no obvious movement. You try to remain faithful, yet the landscape around you seems unchanged. That kind of season can tempt you to believe that God has stepped back, that your name has slipped from his attention, or that your tears have fallen into emptiness. But that is not the truth. Heaven is not silent about you. God has been speaking, moving, restraining danger, arranging timing, and preserving what concerns you, even when your natural eyes could not trace his hand. David knew that hidden kind of divine activity. There were long stretches in his life where the promise seemed to move more slowly than his pain. He had been anointed, yet still he wandered through wilderness places. He had already seen God deliver him in battle, yet he still had to navigate seasons where danger pressed in from every side. He had songs in his spirit, yet he also had caves over his head. From the outside, someone might have looked at David and assumed that heaven had gone quiet, but heaven had not gone quiet. Heaven was shaping a king in places where no crowd could yet see the process. Heaven was protecting him from traps he did not even know had been laid. Heaven was teaching him dependence that would later become strength. And heaven was proving day after day that divine activity does not always look loud while it is happening. That matters for you because some of the deepest ways God moves are the ways you only understand later. There were times he delayed something because what looked open was actually dangerous. There were times he withheld an answer because the timing was not ready. There were times he kept you from a connection, an opportunity, a place, or a path that would have wounded you more deeply than you realized at the time. There were moments when you thought nothing was happening, but God was preserving your heart, preserving your future, preserving your sanity, and preserving the assignment on your life. The problem is that preservation often does not feel exciting when you are living inside it. It can feel like slowness. It can feel like restriction. It can feel like invisibility. But invisibility under God's hand is safer than visibility outside his will. David had to learn that the hidden hand of God is still a powerful hand. He could not always rush into what was next. He could not always explain why his road looked so uneven. He could not always see the full reason for the waiting. But in the middle of all that uncertainty, God was still guiding his steps. There is something deeply comforting about that. It means your life is not being held together only by what you can understand. It means your future is not safe only when you can see the whole path. It means God's faithfulness does not depend on your ability to interpret every delay correctly. He is still God when the map feels incomplete. He is still near when the answers are slow. He is still involved when the scene looks still. And often, heaven speaks in ways that the wounded heart initially misses. Not because God is cruel, but because pain narrows perception. When someone has been disappointed enough times, they begin expecting absence even while God is sending evidence of care. A closed door becomes proof of rejection instead of protection. A hidden season becomes proof of insignificance instead of preparation. A delay becomes proof of neglect instead of timing. Yet the truth remains that God has been communicating through provision, through restraint, through endurance, through scripture, through conviction, through unexpected peace, through moments of survival that made no sense, and through the fact that you are still standing after things that should have taken you out. Think about that carefully. You are still here. You have been hit in ways that should have shattered your inner world completely, and yet something in you remains alive. Something still reaches for God. Something still responds when truth is spoken. Something still knows that despair is not your rightful home, that surviving flame is not an accident. It is part of the evidence that heaven has not been silent about you. God has been guarding that flame. He has been breathing on what almost went out. He has been keeping watch over the part of you that the battle tried hardest to extinguish. This is also why the hidden years of David were so important. In those years, he was not only waiting for circumstances to change, he was learning the voice of God more deeply than public success could have taught him. He was learning where his strength truly came from. He was learning how to remain anchored when people were unstable, when environments were unpredictable, and when the future was not visible. In the same way, your hidden years are not empty years. They are teaching you to discern the ways God moves when applause is absent and certainty is limited. That kind of knowledge will sustain you far beyond this present season. So when you feel tempted to say that heaven has said nothing, pause and look again. The breath in your body is saying something. The mercy that kept you from collapsing all the way is saying something. The wisdom you gained through heartbreak is saying something. The conviction that keeps pulling you back from hopeless thinking is saying something. The doors that closed before they could destroy you are saying something. The strength you did not know you had until you needed it is saying something. God has been speaking in more ways than your tired mind has been able to count. And if this message is helping you hear that more clearly, take a quiet moment to like, share, and subscribe so this word can find someone else who has mistaken hidden activity for silence. And if you want to support the message reaching further, there is a way to donate in the description. Sometimes a simple act of support becomes part of how hope keeps traveling into lives that are hanging on by a thread. But stay with the deeper truth now. Heaven is not silent about you. God is not passive about you. He has not forgotten what He placed in you, and He has not lost sight of the road that will bring it forth. David's wilderness was real, but so was God's nearness. Your confusion may be real, but so is God's involvement. The chapter may still feel unfinished, but that does not mean heaven has gone quiet. It means the story is still moving under the surface, and the God who has kept you this far is still guiding you toward what He promised. What feels like delay has been one of the hardest things for you to carry, because delay can play strange games with the human heart. Pain is one kind of burden, but delay is another. Pain wounds openly, while delay slowly tests your interpretation of everything. It makes you ask whether you heard God correctly. It makes you wonder whether you missed your moment. It makes you question whether the long silence between promise and fulfillment means the promise was never real at all. That is why this next truth matters so deeply. Your delay is not your denial. The slow pace of this season is not proof that God has closed the door on your life. The unfinished nature of the chapter is not evidence that heaven has withdrawn its intention. Sometimes what feels like being held back is actually the careful timing of a God who sees far beyond what you can currently measure. David lived inside that mystery for a long time. He was anointed, and yet he did not step immediately into the throne. He received the mark of future kingship, and still he had to move through years that looked nothing like quick fulfillment. He fought battles, served faithfully, endured rejection, escaped danger, hid in caves, and waded through long stretches of uncertainty. Imagine how easy it would have been for him to look at the distance between the oil and the crown and conclude that something had gone wrong. Imagine how tempting it would have been to believe that the delay itself was the denial. Yet the waiting was not proof of absence. It was part of formation. It was part of timing. It was part of the hidden wisdom of God. That is often what you cannot see while living inside your own delayed season. You are measuring the wait by discomfort, but God is measuring it by readiness. You are measuring it by how long it has felt, while God is measuring it by what still needs to align. You are looking at the closed parts and asking why, while God is looking at the full landscape, the unseen dangers, the unformed strengths, the not yet prepared spaces, and the moments that must converge at the right time. Delay feels cruel when you only see your own longing. But delay can be merciful when God sees everything your longing cannot yet understand. David could have rushed ahead. He had opportunities to force the story. He had chances to grasp with human hands what had already been promised by divine word. But what God appoints must be received in God's way, not seized through panic. This is where many people damage their own peace. They assume that because something is delayed, they must manufacture the result. They move ahead of grace. They try to open what God has not yet opened. They push conversations, chase validations, attach themselves to unstable opportunities, and call it faith when it is really fear wearing religious language. But David's life teaches something holier than urgency. It teaches trust. It teaches restraint. It teaches that divine timing may feel slower than flesh wants, but it is safer, wiser, and stronger than anything panic can build. There is a verse that steadies this truth with deep reassurance. I remain confident of this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Psalm 27, verse 13. That is not the language of denial. It is the language of anchored expectation. David does not say that the road is easy. He does not say that the answer has already arrived. He says he remains confident. In other words, confidence becomes a spiritual choice in the middle of unresolved conditions. It is the refusal to let delay rewrite what God has spoken. It is the refusal to call the waiting room a grave. It is the quiet but fierce decision to believe that God's goodness is still coming into view, even when the present chapter feels slow and unfinished. That is the invitation before you now. Remain confident. Not because you can explain every detail, and not because you can predict every next step, but because God has not changed simply because time is stretched. He is still wise. He is still accurate. He is still attentive. He is still capable of bringing forth at the right moment what looked impossible in the long middle. Your life is not suspended in meaningless delay. It is being held inside divine timing. And divine timing is never random. There is also a hidden mercy in delay that the soul only sees later. Delay exposes what you have been tempted to depend on besides God. It reveals where impatience has been tied to identity. It shows you how much of your peace has been attached to visible progress. It teaches you whether you can still remain faithful when you are not being quickly rewarded. David learned this in wilderness years. He learned how to keep his heart alive without immediate fulfillment. He learned how to honor God when the promise seemed far away. He learned that calling is not only proven in arrival, it is also proven in how you carry yourself while waiting. That matters because the waiting season has not only been about what you want next. It has also been about who you are becoming now. You are learning endurance. You are learning depth. You are learning how to let your roots go down where applause cannot reach. You are learning to distinguish between urgency and guidance. You are learning to trust God without constant visible confirmation. Those lessons are not punishments. They are preparation. They are strengthening you for what comes after the delay, so that when the door opens, your inner life can carry what your outer life receives. So do not look at the calendar and assume heaven is late. Do not look at the unfinished scene and assume God has said no. Do not let prolonged waiting turn into a false interpretation of your worth. Delay does not mean forgotten. Delay does not mean disqualified. Delay does not mean erased. David's life proves that the distance between anointing and fulfillment can be long, and still the promise remain intact. In the same way, what God has spoken over you is not weakened by time. It is not threatened by the slowness of the process. It is not canceled by seasons that seem to stand still. Your delay is not your denial. It is the space where trust is maturing, where strength is deepening, where timing is aligning, and where God is doing more than your eyes can yet confirm. David did not stay in the wilderness forever, and you will not remain in this unresolved place forever either. The goodness of the Lord is not a vanished idea. It is still moving toward you, and when it appears in full, you will understand that what felt like being held back was often the steady hand of a faithful God, making sure that what arrived in your life came at the right time, in the right way, with the right strength formed inside you to carry it well. You are closer than you think, and that is why this moment feels so weighty. There comes a place in the journey where everything seems to narrow into one deep and holy decision. Not 100 decision, not 1,000. One. Will you keep agreeing with fear, or will you come back into agreement with what God has spoken over your life? Will you let weariness name you, or will you let truth restore you? Will you keep standing at the edge of your calling as though you are a stranger to it? Or will you step forward and accept that your next season may be waiting on one act of obedience? This is where the message turns sharp in the most loving way, because you are not as far away as your emotions have been telling you. You are one decision from transformation. That does not mean every visible thing changes in a single second. It means the axis of your life can shift in a single second. A heart can turn in a moment. A mindset can break in a moment. A false agreement can lose its power in a moment. A weary soul can say yes again in a moment. And that yes, when it is offered to God with sincerity, can become the doorway to everything that follows. The transformation often begins before anyone else can see it. It begins when you decide that despair will no longer be your inner language. It begins when you decide that delay will not be interpreted as denial anymore. It begins when you decide that the cave, the wilderness, the long waiting, and the pressure are not going to have the authority to rewrite your identity. David knew this kind of threshold. He did not live his life through one giant decision only. He lived through many moments where his inward posture determined what his outward future would become. There were moments when he could have chosen revenge, but chose restraint. Moments when he could have chosen bitterness, but chose trust. Moments when he could have chosen panic, but chose prayer. Moments when he could have chosen self-promotion, but chose timing. Those decisions mattered because each one aligned him more deeply with the God who had chosen him. Transformation was not only waiting for David at the throne, it was happening every time he said yes to God's way in the middle of pressure. The same is true for you now. You may be waiting for a major sign, a dramatic door, a visible miracle, a sudden confirmation that removes all uncertainty. But many times God begins with a simpler request. Return your heart, return your trust, return your obedience, return your expectation, return your thoughts to truth. The next step may not look impressive to everyone else, but heaven knows the power of a surrendered heart. What seems small to man can be enormous in the spirit. One honest prayer can break a heavy chain. One act of obedience can end a pattern of confusion. One refusal to bow to hopelessness can restore strength that has been buried under months of exhaustion. There is a verse that speaks directly into this moment. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5. That command becomes especially important in seasons like yours, because your own understanding has been wounded by the process. It has been trying to interpret God through pain, and pain is a poor translator of divine intention. Your own understanding looks at the delay and says it is over. Your own understanding looks at the silence and says nothing is moving. Your own understanding looks at the battle and says maybe you should retreat. But the word says trust in the Lord with all your heart. That means the turning point in your life may begin where your logic reaches its limit and your trust says yes anyway. This is not blind faith. This is covenant faith. This is the recognition that God has carried you too far to abandon you now. This is the remembrance that He has preserved you through things you never thought you would survive. This is the awareness that David's life was not built by human strategy alone, but by repeated surrender in hidden places where only God could fully see the choice being made. And now you stand in one of those places. You are standing in a quiet but serious crossroads. The road ahead will be shaped by what you agree with here. If you agree with despair, you will shrink inwardly even if life continues outwardly. If you agree with fear, you will start living beneath the level of your calling. If you agree with your weariness as though it is your identity, you will begin treating temporary exhaustion like eternal truth. But if you agree with God, something begins to rise again. Strength begins to return. Sight begins to clear. The next instruction becomes easier to hear. Hope begins to breathe. The future opens little by little because your heart is no longer shut against it. That is why this moment matters more than it may appear. David did not become who he was meant to be by accident. He became that man through repeated agreement with God in moments when another choice would have been easier. And you are being invited into that same holy alignment. Not by force, not by pressure, by mercy. God is not standing over you with condemnation. He is standing before you with invitation. Choose life again. Choose trust again. Choose obedience again. Choose to believe that what He started in you has not been abandoned in the middle. And as you make that inward turn, let it become simple and clear. Comment, I choose faith. Let that be your witness against despair and your quiet act of alignment with what heaven is saying over you right now. You do not need to know every detail of tomorrow to make the right decision today. You do not need to have every answer before you say yes to God again. You do not need complete clarity to take one faithful step. David often moved without seeing the entire future, but he kept aligning with the God who did. That is the wisdom before you now. One decision from transformation does not mean the whole road appears instantly. It means your feet come back under divine direction. It means your soul stops drifting. It means your spirit comes back into agreement with truth. So take this moment seriously, but do not fear it. This is not a trap. This is an opening. Your life has not narrowed into emptiness. It has narrowed into decision. And if you say yes here, yes in your heart, yes in your trust, yes in your obedience, yes in your willingness to keep walking with God even before the full answer appears, then what follows will be shaped by a different spirit than the one that has been trying to wear you down. You are one decision from transformation because one surrendered yes can reopen everything despair tried to close. And that yes, offered to God, can begin changing your life even before the evidence becomes visible to anyone else. Now you come to the place where you rise again, not as the same person who first entered the battle, but as someone who has been deepened by it. This is not the rise of pride, noise, or performance. This is the rise of authority. It is the quiet but undeniable return of a soul that has been tested, pressed, delayed, and shaken, yet not destroyed. You are not rising because life suddenly became easy. You are rising because truth has begun to settle more deeply than fear. You are rising because what God says about you is becoming heavier than what pain has said about you. You are rising because the version of you that almost gave up is now discovering that identity cannot be stolen by hardship, cannot be erased by delay, and cannot be buried by opposition. That is what David had to learn over time. His authority was not born the day he wore a crown. It was formed through all the seasons that tried to reduce him before he ever sat on a throne. It was formed in the field where he learned faithfulness without applause. It was formed in the confrontation with Goliath where he refused intimidation. It was formed in the caves where he learned restraint under pressure. It was formed in the long waiting where he learned to let God's timing be enough. By the time David stepped into visible leadership, his authority had already been built in hidden places. That matters for you because you have been tempted to look at your hidden battles as interruptions, when in truth many of them have been construction sites. God has been building an inner life that can stand upright when the next season opens. Authority is not merely bold speech. Authority is alignment. It is what happens when a person no longer lets fear dictate their posture. It is what happens when identity stops swinging with circumstances. It is what happens when the soul has passed through enough fire that it no longer panics every time the wind changes. This does not mean you feel strong every minute. It means something deeper than emotion has begun to stabilize inside you. David surely had moments of grief, uncertainty, and fatigue. Yet beneath those waves there was a growing foundation. He knew who had chosen him. He knew who had kept him alive. He knew that his life belonged to a story larger than the hostility around him. And that knowing gave him authority long before public recognition ever did. This is why you must not confuse exhaustion with defeat. There were seasons where David was exhausted, but he was not defeated. There were seasons where he was hunted, but he was not abandoned. There were seasons where he was hidden, but he was not reduced. In the same way, what you have felt recently may describe your condition, but it does not define your identity. You may have been tired, but you are still chosen. You may have been pressed, but you are still covered. You may have been delayed, but you are still appointed. You may have been wounded, but you are not disqualified. The battle described your environment. It never had the right to rename your essence. There is a verse that speaks into this recovery of inner stature with great strength. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. This is not a slogan for ego. It is a declaration of dependence. It means your strength is not self-manufactured. It means your authority does not rise from personality alone. It means that what you need for this next step can be supplied by the Christ who strengthens you. David knew this truth in the language of his own covenant experience. Again and again, he was sustained by strength greater than his own. And now you are being called into that same realization. You do not have to become invincible by human effort. You have to stand in the strength God provides. That changes the way you face the future. Instead of asking whether you are enough on your own, you begin asking whether God is still faithful. Instead of staring at your weakness until it becomes your whole identity, you begin remembering the one who has carried you through every impossible stretch so far. Instead of measuring your tomorrow by yesterday's fatigue, you begin measuring it by divine strength that meets you fresh. This is how authority rises. Not through pretending you were never hurt, but through refusing to let hurt become Lord over your mind. Not through denying the cave, but through coming out of the cave with deeper trust than you had before. David's life proves that the years of pressure did not make him less suited for his calling. They made him more prepared for it. The betrayal did not erase him. The pursuit did not define him. The waiting did not empty him. All of it, painful as it was, became part of the shaping of a king who would know both tenderness and courage, worship and warfare, humility and leadership. In the same way, the seasons that almost broke you are not wasted if they are surrendered to God. He can turn them into weight, into wisdom, into discernment, into compassion, into steadiness, into authority. The very areas where you felt weakest may one day become the places where you carry the most spiritual substance. So rise again. But rise differently. Rise without pretending, so rise without striving. Rise with truth. Rise with the awareness that your identity has survived everything that tried to reduce it. Rise knowing that the calling is still on your life. Rise knowing that God's hand did not leave in the wilderness. Rise knowing that what was formed in private will matter in public. Rise knowing that authority often returns quietly before it becomes visible. First, the inner posture changes, then the outward steps begin to follow. First, the heart stands up. Then the life begins to move with new steadiness. And this rising is not about becoming someone else. It is about returning to the truest self God has been guarding underneath the pressure. Fear tried to cover that self. Shame tried to silence that self. Delay tried to confuse that self. But none of those things created your identity, and none of them have the right to keep it. David did not have to invent a calling. He had to remain aligned with the one God had already spoken. You do not need to create your destiny from nothing. You need to stand back up inside the truth of what God has already said. This is your moment to reclaim spiritual posture, to remember that your name is not failure. Your name is not almost. Your name is not too late. Your name is not forgotten. You belong to God, and what belongs to God carries a kind of authority that hardship cannot permanently destroy. So let your soul rise again. Let your thoughts come back under truth. Let your spirit come back under divine strength. Let the old agreement with weakness break. The same God who raised David through fields, battles, caves, and waiting is raising you now into a steadier kind of strength. And as you rise, you will discover that what seemed nearly lost was not lost at all. It was being purified, protected, and prepared to stand with unshakable authority. Now you arrive at the truth that has been pursuing you through every valley, every delay, every cave, every weary prayer, and every moment when giving up seemed easier than holding on. God finishes what He starts in you, not sometimes. Not only when the road is smooth, not only when your faith feels strong, not only when the people around you understand you. He finishes what He starts in you because His commitment to your destiny is deeper than your confusion, stronger than your fatigue, and steadier than every storm that tried to make you doubt the outcome. You have walked through enough now to understand that if your life were resting only on your own strength, you would have collapsed long ago. But your life has been resting in hands greater than your own, and those hands do not abandon unfinished purpose. David's story has been walking beside you for this very reason. He was chosen in obscurity, shaped in hiddenness, tested in battle, hunted in the wilderness, refined in waiting, and strengthened through long seasons that did not immediately make sense. Yet through every turn, the hand of God remained on him. The promise did not expire in the field. It did not die in the cave. It did not disappear under pressure. It did not weaken because the path took time. And when the day of fulfillment finally came, it was not because David forced it by panic. It was because God had been faithful through every stage, bringing to completion what He had spoken from the beginning. That is the pattern settling over your spirit now. The process may have been painful, but the promise remains alive. The story may have stretched longer than you imagine, but the author has not left the page. This is why you must stop speaking over yourself as though you are a forgotten draft. You are not a discarded beginning. You are not a ruined plan. You are not a person God once intended to use but then quietly set aside. That is not your story. The delays were real, the losses were real, the confusion was real, and the pressure was real, but none of those things became greater than the faithfulness of God. He has been building, correcting, protecting, preserving, and preparing. Even the places that felt empty were not empty to Him. Even the nights that felt silent were not silent in heaven. Even the chapters you would never have chosen have been gathered into something He can still use for glory. And there is peace in this truth when it finally sinks in. You do not have to carry the future as though everything depends on your perfect understanding. You do not have to manufacture the outcome through anxiety. You do not have to punish yourself for every season that felt messy or weak. Your responsibility is not to be the author of your destiny. Your responsibility is to stay yielded to the one who is. The burden becomes lighter when you realize that God's faithfulness is not fragile. He is not confused by your process. He is not intimidated by your unfinished places. He is not looking at your life with uncertainty. He knows what He planted, and He knows how to bring it forth. That is why this final section must become a place of prayer, because after all the warning, all the strengthening, all the reminding, and all the truth that has been spoken, your heart needs to rest in God's presence and answer Him there. Father, in the name of Jesus, I lift up the one listening right now. You see every hidden battle, every tired thought, every disappointment they have carried, and every place where they almost gave up. Thank You for not letting them go. Thank You for preserving them through nights they thought would swallow them. Thank You for the calling that still rests on their life. Thank You that what You began, You are still bringing to completion. Breathe fresh strength into their spirit. Silence the voice of despair. Break every false agreement with hopelessness, fear, delay, and defeat. Restore clear sight where pain has blurred their vision. Heal the inward places that have been bruised by waiting. Put courage back into their heart. Put peace back into their mind. Put holy fire back into their spirit. Let them know, not only in theory but in living experience, that You are near, that You are faithful, and that their future is still in Your hands. Teach them to trust You in the middle, honor You in the process, and follow You without fear. And let the work of Your hand in their life become something beautiful, steady, and complete. In Jesus' name, amen. Let that prayer settle over you. Do not rush past it. There are times when the soul does not need more striving. It needs surrender. It needs stillness. It needs to let truth go deeper than emotion. And the truth here is simple and powerful. God is not halfway committed to you. He is not partially invested in your future. He is not watching your struggle from a distance with indifference. He is involved. He is present. He is finishing what He started. So from this point on, speak differently, walk differently, pray differently, not with arrogance, but with assurance. Not because every answer has appeared, but because the character of God has been established. David's life proved that divine choosing is not a passing mood. It is a covenant reality, and in your own life, that same reality now stands before you. The reason you are still here is not luck, it is mercy. The reason your spirit still responds is not accident, it is grace. The reason this message found you is because heaven is still speaking over your story. And if this word has carried you, strengthened you, or met you at the exact place where you needed it, take a quiet moment to like, share, and subscribe so this message can reach another heart that is standing at the edge of surrender. And if you want to help support this work and the continued spreading of these messages, there is a way to donate in the description. Sometimes the simplest act of support becomes part of how light reaches someone in a dark hour. Now hold this final truth without wavering. You are not finished because God is not finished. You are not disqualified because the process was hard. You are not behind beyond recovery. You are not too wounded to be used. You are not too late for grace. The hand that chose you is still the hand that keeps you. The voice that called you is still the voice that leads you. The God who preserved David from field to throne is the same God preserving you from this chapter into the next. And when all is said and done, your life will testify that what God begins, He completes with wisdom, with mercy, with power, and with glory. So breathe again, beloved chosen one, and let your soul rest in this certainty. The night was real, but it was not final. The waiting was heavy, but it was not empty. The battle was fierce, but it did not own your ending. God has carried you too far to leave you now, and every step ahead will be held by the same faithful hand that sustained you behind. Let peace return slowly. Let hope return honestly. Let strength return deeply. You do not need to force tomorrow into view. You only need to keep walking with the one who already stands there. The story is still unfolding, and grace is still speaking over your life. What was delayed will not be denied if God has spoken it. What was wounded can still be healed. What was weary can still rise. And what heaven marked cannot be erased by earth. Rest tonight knowing this: you are still chosen. You are still covered. You are still being led. And God, in His perfect faithfulness, is not finished with you.